everyone, and welcome to Vodori's Benchmarks Symposium, a video series about our 2023 Benchmarks report. My name is Annalise, Senior Manager of Marketing and Communications at Vodori, and I'm joined today by our VP of Customer Success, Jessy Horrell. Jessy, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
So today we're going to talk about means and medians. So it's going to be more of a deep dive conversation today. And, Jessy, I think right off the bat, in this year's report, one of the newer additions we have to the report is the introduction of medians in addition to mean process benchmarks. Why did we do that? Can you talk a little bit about why we decided to make that decision, what the value of it is?
Yeah, I think that given our closeness to this data and, having gone through it in order to produce this report, we're always interested in looking at the data and seeing what it tells us. And we know that inherently mean has some flaws, just I guess for a quick level set for everyone. I'm sure you all know what a mean is, but it's an average across all of the values that are included in the data set. And so out of kind of curiosity, we start to look through median because we realize that the outliers impact the mean more. And when we actually look at the skew of this data, we notice that it's positively distributed, which actually means mathematically that the median is a better measure of central tendency. So what that means is that technically speaking, if you were to say how often does it normally take our piece to go through the process, the median is a more accurate measure to answer that question than mean. And so I think that as, experts in this field, we've always sort of known that about this data and that it's interesting to look at both and that both are really valuable. And we wanted to pass that along to our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both are helpful to understand, even if you're not a data person, I think, if you own this process, if you manage this process at your organization, having both metrics at your fingertips is really useful to not only understand your own process, but maybe drive process improvements, underscore things that, compared to some other organizations, it might enlighten that you have some areas that you might want to focus on or improve on, especially as we're, approaching a new year. That could be the case for many organizations. So it's another data set to come to the table armed with to make some important strategic decisions around your process.
That's right. And I think it's important to note that, the data that we're looking at is very large. And so it's a roll up across, a number of our customers. Your specific data set could be smaller and your mean and medians could be flipped from one another and your particular skew of your data could be different. So I think that's important to know as well. So understanding if you have more jobs that take longer than the middle point or more jobs that actually go faster. So you're right. I mean, both metrics are important for getting the totality of the picture.
Let's take a look at what the 2023 report says about some key metrics, right? So let's take a look first at job duration. So in our report, we define job duration as the number of days it takes to review and approve a piece of content. So this includes prep, review, feedback consolidation, and approval. So it's really the totality of that review process. The mean in our 2023 report is 14.2 days. The median is 6.7. Another key metric we introduce is review duration. So the number of days it takes for the review team to review and approve or give feedback on a piece of content. So the mean for this metric is 7.7 days, and the median is 3.9 days. So Jessy, again, just unpack this. Let's say I'm an organization and I see the job duration here, mean and median. How am I going to use this information?
Yeah, I think at a glance, seeing a spread that wide might make people question why. Why is the number so wide from one another, and what does that really mean? And I think that if we think about it mathematically, a higher mean and a smaller median that have this kind of spread really means that you have a very few number of jobs taking a really long time to complete, and that is skewing the mean number. It's more the case that you have jobs that are taking only a number of days, and therefore your median is much smaller. And so I think it's celebratory, really, that, now knowing and level setting that the central tendency and the sort of most common outcome is that you're closer to 1 calendar week as opposed to 2 calendar weeks is really enlightening and I guess really celebratory as well.
Absolutely. And it could also be indicative of maybe the types of content that people are creating. So if there's a type of content like social media posts that you are creating at a higher frequency, so maybe the team is used to reviewing and approving that content, or everyone is just more on the same page in terms of what that content should look like, a median might be the better representation because it's more of that typical review time. If it's longer form content, more complex, something that you maybe only do on a quarterly basis, perhaps that mean is going to be more of a better metric to look at to drive any expectations you have around how long can I anticipate that something is going to take. Would you agree with that
Yeah.
example? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that both, the nature of the content, the how new it is or novel the messaging is certainly makes a difference. The form, the lexicon, just really a lot goes into that. And it is hard to really see the totality of the picture without digging a layer deeper. But it is good to at least have some benchmarks to look at, to compare yourself against, how your peers are performing. That way you can make some of those critical decisions internally.
Absolutely. And benchmarks are always directional, right? So never to say that this is exactly where you need to be. You have factors at your organization, your team size, the types of content you're creating. So, benchmarking is very helpful. It's directional. It can help you compare and contrast, but by no means is it the end all be all in terms of metrics, but super useful as you think about, again, process optimizations and making some of those more strategic decisions around your process in general. Jessy, anything else you would add about means and medians?
I think you kind of touched on it, but, using this information to your advantage, one way that you can do that as an organization is to really think about, if you are trying to optimize, say, either mean or median, or really pull down, your average review time, you kind of hinted at it, but you need to look one layer deeper into, are there any trends by content type, by agency we work with, by product manager, where are we seeing some spikes and or valleys, and why? And what does that tell us about those, specific conditions of that content? And what can we learn from those and apply more broadly if we are trying to improve on a specific metric?
Yeah, absolutely. The more you know, the more you can improve, right? That's one of the great values of data and certainly of the benchmarks report. Well, Jessy, thanks so much for joining. Really beneficial conversation here today around means and medians. Excited for everyone to take a look at the report and see the other ways that we've introduced medians into various data sets presented. If you haven't already, go download the 2023 Promotional Review Benchmarks report. You can download it at vodori.com/2023 benchmarks, and make sure to follow us on LinkedIn so that you have access to the other videos that we're planning to release as part of this Benchmark Symposium series. Jessy, thanks so much again for joining.
Thanks for having me.